Okay, so we're on page 21. We're going to do another subject, and that is, we know that the name of something is not just random, we choose a name, but in Hebrew, and especially in Torah, the name is very precise, and it's something which defines the essence, whether it's a person, whether it's an object, whether it's an animal. How much more so when we're talking about something which is in Torah. So the name Pesach is a name that is given in the Torah. It has the name of the holiday, and it describes the essence. Why? So let's look at the source of it. You turn the page. There's sort of two names that are used for Pesach. One is on page 22, and the other one is on page 23. Page 22 is from the Siddur, and we know that on Yom Tov we daven different Shmon Esrei, and in the Shmon Esrei it's the same for Pesach, for Shavuos, for Sukkot, but for each Yom Tov we insert a piece indicating that this is the Yom Tov of Pesach, this is the Yom Tov of Sukkot, this is the Yom Tov of Shavuos. So what does it say by Pesach? Look at page 22. It says that Hashem, you gave us these festivals to rejoice, and the day of Pesach, which is Chag HaMatzos. It's called the Chag HaMatzos, the Yom Tov where we eat matzah.
What does that mean?
Listen, Bailey, did I answer your question? No.
I can ask it.
What?
I can ask it.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, Chag HaMatzos means it's the holiday that we have the mitzvah of eating matzah. This we understand. Every Yom Tov has a certain mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of the day, and Pesach, the mitzvah of the day, is eating the matzah. The other name is actually in the Chumash. That's on page 23, where it says that Hashem jumped over the homes of the Yidden at the night of the Makas B'choros, which means it was the 10th plague, and all the firstborn were killed. But Hashem jumped over the homes of the Yidden, and he didn't kill the firstborn of the Yidden. So the Pasuk says, hey, let's look at Pasuk 26, Chovav. When your children will ask, what is this avodah that you're doing? And you will say to them, it's a Pesach offering. Why? Asher Pesach Abote Bnei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim, because Hashem passed over the homes of the Yidden in Egypt. When he struck the Egyptians, meaning the firstborn, he struck them, but he saved our homes. And then the people bowed and they prostrated themselves to Hashem. So that means the other reason that's given is because Hashem jumped over the homes of the Yidden by the plague of Makas B'choros. So the question is, it's true that that's one of the miracles that happened, but there were many miracles. Why does this jumping over become the name of the Yom Tov? Could you imagine the other would be called Tzfardeya, frogs? Where are you going for frogs? I'm going to my in-laws for frogs. Why are you calling it frogs? Because there was a miracle that there was a plague of frogs. Maybe call it lice. It's a miracle of lice. No, that's scary. Okay, frogs sounds better. So why is it called Pesach? Because it's a one detail in one of the plagues that Hashem, and the truth is it happened with other plagues also, that Hashem sent wild animals, but it didn't attack the Yidden. Hashem sent darkness, but it didn't affect the Yidden. And here Hashem sent another plague, which is killing the firstborn, and it didn't affect the Yidden. Why does this become the name that's supposed to define the essence of the Yom Tov? In addition to that, we find another source, and that's page 24. Page 24 is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, and in fact, you might notice in a lot of Haggadahs they have it on the cover of the Haggadah or somewhere, a picture of a deer jumping, and it's connected to this pasuk. It says, Koil Doidi, I hear the voice of my beloved, which is Hashem. Hine Zeba, the voice is saying he's coming to redeem us. Nedalag ala harim means he's jumping over the mountains. Mekapetz ala voice, and he's skipping over the hills. And the next one says, Doime Doidi litzvi, my beloved is compared to a tzvi, is a deer, or the Aper Hayolim, or another one of the animals that are from the same species, a little bit different, and they're jumping over the mountains and jumping over the hills. So again, we're describing that it's not just that Hashem jumped over the homes of the Yidden. The whole process of Pesach is being compared to Hashem jumping. What does that mean? So we'll look in the Medrash. Page 25 and 26 is the Medrash that explains that. In fact, the Medrash is explaining this particular pasuk, the one that we just read. So look where it's underlined on page 25. It starts off like this. I hear the voice of my beloved saying, he's coming. He's jumping over the mountains, skipping over the hills. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, Rabbanan. There are three sages that interpreted this pasuk. One was Rabbi Yehuda, one was Rabbi Nechemia, and one was Rabbanan. And this is what they said. First one, Rabbi Yehuda said like this: Who is it referring to? They're Moshe. It's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. And what is it telling us? The Shah Shabbat Moshe. When Moshe Rabbeinu came, and he told the Jewish people, this month, that's when you're going to be going out of Golus. They said to Moshe, they challenged him. And they said, Rabbeinu Moshe, which means they recognize that he's Moshe. They recognize that he's their Rebbe, Rabbeinu Moshe. But they said, hey, how could it be that we're going out this month? What's wrong? That's not what Hashem told Avram Avinu. What did Hashem tell Avram Avinu? He said to him, Va'avadum, and you will serve the Egyptians, V'inu, and they will torment you. For how long? Arba Meir Shana. And it's not 400 years yet. We only have Masayim Vesa, 210 years. So they were saying it can't be we're going out of Golus. We're supposed to be here for 400 years, and it's only 210. So Moshe said to them, being that Hashem wants and desires that you should go out of Golus, Hashem will not pay any attention to your accounting. 210, 400, Hashem will jump over the mountains, the capital Aglois will jump over the hills, skip over the hills, which means he's going to jump over all the accounting and all the calculations, which these calculations mean that we have to still be in Golus. Hashem will jump over that and will bring the Geula in the year 210, not wait till 400. So now we see something a little bit different. It's not just the last plague. The whole process of taking us out of Egypt was Hashem jumping. What does it mean, jumping? Figuratively speaking, means he jumped over the calculations. 210 years means we still need another 190 years to be in Mitzrayim. Hashem jumped over from 210, we're up to 400. And that's why the Yontif is called Pesach, not just the last plague. The whole Yontif of taking us out of Egypt meant that Hashem jumped.
But I was thinking this, because if we were in the tribes that we remember them, maybe they're down with like a yellow level of.
Right. So that's why Hashem did it. But and also here it says Hashem just wanted us to end the suffering, and therefore he jumped over the designated amount of time that should have been. And obviously the fact that it should have been 400 years wasn't also random. It meant it was a certain process that we needed to go through to be prepared to leave Mitzrayim. So Hashem expedited that process. Instead of taking another 190 years, It took another second, and from 210 it went straight to 400. That's the first opinion. The second sage, he said like this: so Moshe Rabbeinu said, so therefore don't worry, you're going out this month, and this is the month of Nissan. Then comes Rabbi Nechemiah. He said something similar, but a little bit different. When it says you hear this voice of my beloved, that's Moshe. And what is he saying? When it comes to the Yidden, and he says, this month you're going out of Golus, the Yidden say to Moshe, Rabbeinu Moshe, hey, how can we go out of Golus? Be'eretz, Mitzrayim, Malaya, Mitinefes, Abedizara, Shalana. All of Egypt is full of the filth of our idols, and we don't deserve to go out of Mitzrayim yet. So how can you tell us that we're going out of Mitzrayim? So this is another group of people, or it's another opinion, but it probably meant another group of people. They gave a different argument, that we don't deserve spiritually to be taken out of Mitzrayim, because we're still holding on to Avodah Zarah. What did Moshe Rabbeinu say? Being that Hashem desires to take you out of Golus, he's not going to pay any attention to your Avodah Zarah. He's going to jump over the mountains and skip over the hills. And we find that mountains and hills allude to Avodah Zarah. And bring a pasuk where it says that they brought incense and sacrifices for idols on the mountain. That's the second opinion. Again, the same interesting episode. Moshe is saying to them, I got good news for you. We're going out of Golus. And you didn't say, wait, hold it. We're not ready. I don't think we deserve to go out of Golus. Hard to believe, but that's how it happened. Then there's a third opinion. Rabban Amrim, the rabbis say, when he came to the Yidden, now on page 26, and he said that we're going out of Golus this month, they said to him, Rabbeinu Moshe, how can we go out of Golus? We don't have any good deeds. They didn't argue that the calculations don't match. They didn't argue that we have Avodah Zarah. But they said we don't have good deeds, that in that merit we should be going out. So Moshe said, being that Hashem wants and he has the desire to take you out of Golus, he doesn't look at your negative things. What does he look at? At the tzaddikim, at Amram, or Beis Dinai, and he looked at Amram and his colleagues who were great tzaddikim. And we find that Harim Agvois, which means mountains and hills, sometimes allude to a Bezdin, the court of rabbis, the sages that teach Torah to the Jewish people. So basically, what it says here is that there were three different reasons that were given that we shouldn't be going out of Golus, which means according to the order of things, according to protocol, we still should be in Mitzrayim. Either because of the time hasn't come, either because we are Avodah Zarah, or because we don't have enough good deeds. And all three answers, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem is jumping over all this, he's overlooking all this, and he's expediting the Golus even before we're ready, even before we have good deeds, and even before we reach the year 400. Then the Medrash continues that a similar thing will happen when Mashiach comes. Rabbi Yudin, B'Shem Rabbi Lazar, B'neish Rabbi Yisrael Gluvi, Rabbi Chayna, B'Shem Rabbi Lazar, Ben Yaakov. These are the sages that said something additional. And what did they say? It's referring to the voice of Mashiach. That Mashiach is going to be the one that's going to say something similar is going to happen. When he comes to you, then he says, you're going out of Golus, the Yidden are going to say to him the same thing. Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach. Our dear Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. No, we can't go out of Golus here. Why not? This is not consistent with what Hashem said. Hu mishabdeinu b'shiva mumis. Hashem said we'll be engulfed by the 70 nations. We haven't yet been by all 70 nations. Can you imagine? Mashiach is coming and telling us good news. You're going out of Golos, no more suffering. And he says, no, we didn't suffer enough yet. We only suffered by some nations, not by all 70. So Mashiach will answer them, he'll give them two answers. One, Echad mikam goyel lebarbaria, Echad mikam l'sarmacher, v'goyin shegalisem kulchem. One of you will be in Golos in a place called Barbaria. One of you will be in a place called Saramacha. And I guess one of you will be in another place. Altogether, Jews will be in all 70 nations. And being that even one Jew is there, it'll be as if all the Yidden are there because we're all connected. So in a sense, we all have been already in the 70 nations. And by the way, in our generation, this could be said more than any other generation before, because there probably was never a time in history that Yidden was spread in all the different countries of the world, that is a presence of Jews everywhere, no matter how far and how remote, there's Jews living in every place. We once had a student here. Where did she come from? Indonesia. She lives in Indonesia, and I think her mother still lives there. And she came from there to here to learn. So there's Yidden everywhere. And even now in Iran, with everything that's going on, there's a community of Jews living there. In all these countries. They just said now in Syria, there's still some Jews living there. Here, most of the people, there's someone there. Even if there's one Jew there, it's as if everyone is there. Especially, with the shluchim, there's someone everywhere. That's one answer. What's the second answer? There's going to be a wicked, evil government that's going to come out with decrees against Yidden, but all the other nations will support them. So it'll also be as if all the nations are coming out against the Yidden. It's also happening today. We have a body called the United Nations. They're supposed to officially represent all the nations of the world. And therefore, when they came out with something against Israel, which in the previous government, it happened that even America joined the gang in certain things. So even though we know these are the ones that are attacking, but in the sense that all the nations are coming out against Eretz Yisrael. So what the result of what we see from here is that this is what it means that the Yom is called Pesach, jumping. So now let's explain this a little bit further. Going back to that page, which is 21. Yeah.
And I thought it was like we got 400 years, like Shem started.
Right. So obviously, like everything else in Torah, there are different opinions, but it doesn't mean that one opinion contradicts the other opinion. It means, number one, like it says here, Hashem is jumping over the calculations. Number two, in a certain way, in a certain aspect, there is a number of 400 if you start counting from an earlier time. I mean, because when you start counting the 400, there really wasn't any slavery. The earlier years, there was no slavery, and that's part of what it says. Didn't Hashem say that you'd have to suffer in slavery for so many years? And the answer to that is no. So what does it mean? Look back at page 21. Number 4, it says, Chamishim Shari Bina Nivru Ba'olam. There are 50 gates of Bina that Hashem created. The 50 gates means 50 degrees of holiness, of godliness, and specifically it's related to the sphere of Bina. And when the Yidden were in Mitzrayim, something we mentioned before, number 5, Mem Tes Shari Tumah. They were sinking lower and lower in the realm of Klipa, of impurity. Mitzrayim, and let's not forget, in that generation, there's a word in the Chumash, it's called Ervas Ha'aretz, which means it was the most immoral, the most unspiritual place in the whole world. It was the lowest place in the world in terms of spirituality. That was the source of sorcery. Sorcery is like a very strong power of kupa. And all the things which go against Hashem's will and Hashem's wish, these were the things that were going on in Egypt, and that's what they were practicing. And the Yidden were there, so they sank into the 49 gates of impurity. And then what happened after that? Number 6, Nigla Aleihem Melech Malchi Amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'Go'alom. Let me show you where that phrase comes from. It comes from the Haggadah. That's on page 27. That's a good page 27 where it says, there's a part of the Haggadah where we point to the matzah and we say, why do we eat matzah? Matzah zu, this matzah that we eat, what's the reason we eat matzah? And we give the answer. We went out of Egypt so fast that there wasn't even enough time for the bread to become chametz. So we went out of Egypt. Before we even had a chance, the King of Kings, Hashem, the Holy One, revealed himself to them and redeemed them. In other words, what happened when Yidden went out of Mitzrayim is that Hashem revealed himself to the Yidden. When you say there was a miracle, what does that mean in simple words? It means Hashem revealed himself. And we know even when we talk about Hashem, there are different levels. One name of Hashem alludes to one level, a different name of Hashem alludes to another level. Without going into the details, Chassidus explained that this title, which is Melech Malchi Amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that refers to the highest level of godliness, was revealed to them, and they were totally and completely unprepared. Normally, Hashem reveals himself to me in proportion to how much I make myself ready for him, which means if I refine myself 10%, Hashem reveals himself 10%. If I refine myself 20%, Hashem reveals himself 20%. And if I refine myself 90%, Hashem reveals himself to me 90%. But if I am at a place where I'm in the 49th gate of impurity, Hashem reveals himself 100%, that's the true meaning of jumping. That Hashem jumped over this sort of spiritual protocol that he reveals himself to everything in the world and every person in the world according to how much they're deserving, how much they're worthy. This would be like taking the Atlantic Ocean and putting it into this cup. It's impossible. For Hashem to take his presence, Melech Malchi Amlochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and reveal that to us when our vessel, our keli is so small, that is called jumping. Hashem jumped over all the rules, all the limitations of nature, so to speak, all the limitations of the way the world runs spiritually, and he revealed himself in a way which is way beyond what we were really ready for. That's what it means that Hashem jumped. And look at the sheet, number 10. It says Avodah l'mayla memedida v'agbola, an avodah which is above and beyond measurements and calculations. Basically, what does it mean for us here in Tafshin Pei 2025? What does it mean that this Pesach Hashem jumps? In our avodah, it also means that we have the ability to jump. On Pesach, we can jump, which means normally the difference between walking and jumping. I mean, it's a term that's used figuratively. Walking means you go step by step. And jumping is that you go from one spot to a spot that normally you would have to walk so much. And jumping is you get there, like you expedite, you get there without going through all the middle stages. And that's what Hashem did. He didn't go through the middle stages. But personal avodah means that Pesach we can sort of liberate ourselves from our own limitations, from our own restrictions, and we can jump, come to a place spiritually that is much higher. It would take much longer to get there. But on Pesach, we have the power to jump over and get to a place. Spiritually, of course, every person according to where they're coming from, but to get to a place that normally might take me so much longer to go step by step. It's like this story. Apparently, there's some story that they joke that goes around in Russia. I heard this once from Professor Bronover, who said when the first train came out, naturally it was a big shock to people. Normally to travel, you have to go by horse and buggy. And here's the train traveling like a speed like nothing else. So there was an old woman walking with heavy packages, and the guy who was driving the train decided that he felt bad for this woman, and he stops the train. He says, "Lady, get on the train. I'll take you wherever you need to go." And she said, "Would you stop bothering me? Don't you see that I'm in a rush? I know you're in a rush, but if you get on this train, you'll get there much quicker if you're in a rush." There are times of the year where we have to walk to get places. We have to walk fast. But the Pesach is a time where Hashem gives us the koyach that we can jump and get places where, I mean, in a certain sense, the whole world today is a jumping world, if you think of it. You know, that we can be sitting here in Crown Heights and you could look at someone who's thousands of miles away and see him and talk to them and see what they're doing. You want to send money to someone. Oh, I have to find someone to send it to. How's it going to get there? And today, you use a credit card. In a second, the person has the money, Zelle or whatever it is, catch up. In 1 second, your money is in my account. Isn't that jumping? And even to take an airplane takes you 13 hours to get to Israel is also jumping because it took so much longer. So basically, the Gashmis, it's a world where we can jump, and the Ruchnis, it's also a world where we can jump. Doesn't matter where I'm coming from. Doesn't matter so much what was there in the past. Pesach gives us the power that we can jump in a way that within no time, I can transform my personal life, my personal self, to be in a place where I'm much higher where I was before. One of the things that are related to Pesach, which is based on this, but this is sort of translating it in a very physical, technical way, is one of the character traits that a Yid should possess is called zrizus. That's here number 7 on the page. Zrizus means to do things quickly, not to procrastinate. When you learn Pirkei Avos, which talks about character traits, this always comes up. But on one hand, there's also another character trait that when you do things, pay attention to what you're doing, do it thoroughly. Like when you're davening, don't just run through the siddur, and when you're learning something, don't just race right through it, but do it step by step. Do it in a way that you're really concentrating and you're digesting what you're taking in. So it's not a contradiction. The difference is when you do something, you do it thoroughly. And when you're learning or you're davening, you do it with thought and concentration and slowly. But when you're going to do something, that's when you're doing the running. In other words, you don't procrastinate. So if a person, for example, wakes up in the morning and says, I have to go daven, before I go daven, I just want to do this one thing. I have to go on Kingston Avenue to get something. And while I'm on Kingston, I passed another store, I might as well get that. Then I met a friend, and okay, I'll go speak to that friend about this or that. And 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I remind myself it's time for daven. So that means I didn't do it early enough. But when I do daven, I say every word slowly, like it says in Shulchan Aruch, when you daven, you should pronounce the word like someone who's counting money, one by one. Don't miss anything, don't miss a word, and don't mispronounce a word. Make sure that you say everything right. So zrizus is a character trait. In fact, we learned this from Avraham Avinu. There's a chapter in Tanya where the Alter Rebbe says that we make this big deal about Avraham Avinu bringing his son to the Akedah, but really there were so many people who gave up their lives, their children's lives for Hashem. You know the famous story with Chana. The story of Chana, a woman by the name of Chana, she actually gave up her own life, and 7 of her children they shouldn't bow down to idols. And there are many answers to this question, but the one the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya is the main thing that was unique about Avraham Avinu is that he did it with reasons. He got up early in the morning. If you look at the words in the Chumash, it says he got up early in the morning and he ran to do this as if he was running to sort of bring a gift to his child. But what was he running was to sacrifice his child, because this is what Hashem wanted. He did it with enthusiasm, with excitement, and that's one of the commandments, to do, if it's something positive, to do it with reason, which means to run to do it, to rush to do it. I once met someone that, he told me that when he first became religious, he was invited, one of his friends had a baby boy to the bris. And his bris was called for 8 o'clock. They came 8 o'clock, knocked on the door, and someone answered the door, yes, what are you here for? Who are you looking for? He said, oh, I understand there's supposed to be a bris here. Oh yeah, we had it this morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. And he was in shock. Who has an event in the morning? But mitzvahs are at night, bat mitzvahs are at night, weddings are at night. Whoever has an event, 8 o'clock in the morning. So why is a bris 8 o'clock in the morning? Because a bris is the mitzvah of Avraham Avinu. And Avraham Avinu was outstanding in this character trait that he did whatever he did for Hashem. He rushed to do it. He ran to do it. He did his reasons. So it happens to be that this character trait, one of the sources where we learn about it is from Pesach, from matzahs. I'll show the words inside. If you look on page 28, 28, and then page 29. Nope, I didn't put it in there. Okay, look at page 28 first. Page 28 is where Hashem commands the Yidden how they should eat the matzah when they're in Mitzrayim. Masnechem chagurim, your waist should have the belt on, your shoes should be on your feet, your walking staff should already be in your hand, and you should eat the chipazon in haste, because it's a Pesach offering for Hashem. In other words, because Pesach is all about Hashem jumping, therefore we have to express this in the way we act. That we're also rushing to do something, that we're getting ready to run out of Mitzrayim. In fact, on the next page, Rashi says, let's look at the next page. It says in the Chumash, Vahi Mikei Shloshim Shana, is at the end of 430 years, like you just said, so that there is a counting where it really was over 400 years. Vahi Be'etzim Hayem, it was on that very day, the essence of the day. So Rashi says, what does it mean by the essence of the day? It means that the moment the bondage ended, as soon as the Kates came, Hashem didn't hold them back even for 1 second, not even for the amount of the time that it takes to blink an eye. They immediately went out of goals. Again, the idea of Hashem did it quickly, but on a deeper level, what does it mean that Hashem jumped and rushed? It means he went over the normal procedure and the normal steps that you have to take, and he raised us to the highest level spiritually, even though we weren't totally prepared for that at all. Back to page 21, so I thought I brought the pasuk, but there's a pasuk in Chumash, which is number 8. You know that matzah is called Shmura matzah, right? It's based on a pasuk in Chumash. Which pasuk? The one that says, Ushmartem es hamatzahs. You should guard the matzahs. Guard them from what? Guard the matzahs from water, they shouldn't become pumic. So, literally it means protect the matzahs, that it shouldn't become sour. Number 9 is what it says in Gemara, and that is that there's another way of looking at the word. Look at the word of shmartem and matzahs. The word matzahs can also be read as mitzvahs. You should guard the mitzvahs. What does it mean? So this is the phrase in Gemara. Mitzvah habali yotcha. If a mitzvah comes to your hand, which means you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, al tachmitzena, don't let it go sour. Which is basically the character trait of the reason to do things quickly and not to procrastinate, to push things off. So the real reason for this is because I should be serving Hashem with such love, with such excitement, with such enthusiasm, that therefore I don't just do it, but I'm doing it with every fiber of my being. And that's why, just like people are rushing and running to do something which is exciting to them, the Gashmis, that's how we should be running and rushing to do things which is exciting for us, Baruchiyats. So Pesach is one of those mitzvahs, and one of the places you see it is in the matzah bakery. Because you're supposed to be so careful, doesn't become chametz, you'll notice that in the matzah bakery, from the moment that the flour touches the water, you start counting, the clock starts ticking, 18 minutes. First they have to put it out, someone has to knead the dough. Then someone has to make it into a matzah. Then they have to put holes in it. Then they put it into the oven. And it's not allowed to take more than 18 minutes. So everything is rush. Because that's really one of the main things of Pesach. But why? Not just because Hashem jumped here and jumped there. The whole idea of Pesach is, to sum it all up, that Hashem revealed himself to us in the highest level, even though we didn't take the steps to get there. And every single year when Pesach comes around, we're given a certain kaya that we can go beyond ourselves, beyond our limitations, beyond what I would normally think, oh, I need many days, months, or years to be able to get there. When it comes to Pesach, Hashem empowers us that we could jump, each one in our own personal avodah. Page 31 is about matzah. So the two things we learned the mimer. This is one example of something. When you learn a mimer, it covers one subject. We learned the mimer of the Tzemach Tzedek. It was all about matzah. That matzah is bread of emunah. Even though I didn't finish it, I just started it. Rabbi Duba finished it with you. But you learned through the whole mimer. So I don't really have to go into everything that's here. I just want to mention something which I'm not sure Rabbi Duba mentioned it. We know that it's important the matzah should be round. In fact, one of the mitzvahs, I think this is they say the first mitzvah that Rabbi ever came out with was to distribute matzahs to people. They should have shmura matzah and they should have a round matzah. The shmura matzah means that you should make sure that it should be totally protected from water. Not only the flour, but even the wheat when it grows, when it grows, could it have water on it or not?
If it's before it's right,
Before it's cut off, could it have water? What? Right. There's no way it can grow, it wouldn't have water. It has to have water. So as long as it's connected to the ground, water is okay. But once you cut it off the ground, matzah that's not shmura matzah, and you're not careful, it's just wheat now. When you make it flour, then you have to be careful that it doesn't become wet. Shmura matzah means, no, even the wheat, once it's cut off, we make sure it doesn't become wet. But years ago, it was a very complicated process because they didn't know in advance what the weather is going to be. Today, you can know in advance it's going to be a warm weather, it's going to be sunny, and it's fine. Years ago, they had no idea what's going to be tomorrow. But today, when they go to the field to cut the wheat for Pesach, they know in advance this is going to be a day that's appropriate because it won't rain. But why is it so important to be round matzah? Because there is matzah that's sold that's square. And it's also kosher. But it's better to have round. And the answer is based on this. This is the Zohar. Remember we learned the Zohar, that matzah has the power to empower us with emunah. That was what the whole mimer explained. Emunah is related to the fact that it's round. Why is that? The difference between serving Hashem with intellect or serving Hashem with emunah, these are the two things, na'aseh v'nishma. Either you can serve Hashem intellectually, we understand, and we look deeply into the reasons for this mitzvah, for that mitzvah, and everything that we find in Torah, and my intellect dictates to me that I should be serving Hashem and doing all those things. Emunah means that it's something which transcends intellect, it's deeper than intellect. And where does it come from? That means there's a bond, there's a connection in my soul with Hashem that's not based on intellect, it's deeper than intellect. Normally, people associate faith with something which is simple and something which means a person who is not intelligent enough just trusts everything you tell them and they believe everything you say. When we talk about Amunah, the Yid, it's just the opposite. It means that my bond to Hashem and my knowledge of Hashem, my awareness of Hashem, comes from a very deep place in my neshama, a place in my soul that's deeper than logic, deeper than intellect. And therefore, it's an unconditional connection. If it's based on intellect and logic, it's conditional. If I don't understand something, my connection is going to be weaker. If something doesn't make sense or unacceptable in my logic, I might not even do it altogether. But if it's based on something which is deeper than logic, then it's an unconditional connection, and that's Amunah. So where does it come from? It comes from the part of the soul that is Yechida, the essence of the soul, which is not limited, and its love for Hashem is unconditional. So generally speaking, in Torah, specifically in Kabbalah, the difference between a circle and things that are not a circle but straight line is that a circle represents the infinite. That's why there are various things in Torah that are related to circles. For example, at a wedding, where the people in the family of the Kala, they make a circle around the chutzner. Another example is Simchas Torah. We do hakafas. Hakafas means to circle the bima with the Sefer Torahs. Or another example is Sukkot time, where we take the lulav and the esrog, and we also do hakafas. We go around the bima with the lulav and the esrog. What is this thing about going in circles? And the answer is, a circle represents a light of Hashem that's infinite. And in those areas where what we need to do is draw down that light, therefore we create a circle, and that brings down that infinite light. So being that matzah is something which is related to Amunah, which comes from a place in the soul which is also, its connection to Hashem is infinite, is unlimited, is unconditional, and therefore if the matzah is round, I guess any matzah will accomplish it, but if the matzah is round physically, then that strength that comes from matzah will be more revealed, it'll be more effective. That's why we have round matzah. And one more thing related to this, which you didn't talk about in the minor, and that is by the way, this will probably learn this in the halacha class, that we know that every time we sit down to eat, we wash some bread, we dip the bread into salt. And why is that? Because eating bread by the table is like a carbon, and a carbon always has to have salt. The person in Chumash, alcohol or banfa, is put melech, the cypress melech. However, the night of the Seder, when we eat the matzah, there is no salt. I mean, there's salt, but you don't dip the matzah into salt. The only exception. What's the reason? So this is the reason that salt naturally adds taste. Everybody knows one of the things in cooking is you put in salt and give it a certain taste. So without the salt, the matzah doesn't have the taste. It's interesting to note that the word tam in Hebrew, what does it mean? It means reason and it means taste. It means both. Because when you do something that you know the reason for it has more of a taste. It's more pleasurable because I understand what I am accomplishing. When you do something just because of Kabbalah soil out of Amunah and faith, Hashem said so, therefore I do it, then it doesn't have a reason, and therefore in a certain way it doesn't have that taste, that pleasure. Wow, I realize what I'm accomplishing. So therefore, being that matzah is all about Amunah, eating matzah empowers us with Amunah, faith in Hashem. Therefore, we don't put salt, so it should be pure matzah, which means pure faith. In halacha, it gives a simple reason. it says in order to really taste the matzah, we shouldn't put anything else in. So we have pure matzah. But spiritually, it's because matzah is all about amunah. So this explains another thing, and that is, we'll probably go into this a little bit more later, but that, turn to page 33. Page 33 is a pasuk in Tanakh where it speaks about Hashem and the Yidden, but it uses the metaphor of the husband and wife, and the part that's underlying, where it says, "Ve'erastich li la'olam," I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me the tzedek of the mishpat, with justice and righteousness, the chesed with kindness, the rachman with compassion. Then it says, "Ve'erastich li be'emunah," I will betroth you to me be'emunah, with faith, and you will know Hashem. So you see the word is repeated many times. So the Gemara says, generally speaking, there's two things there. One is where it says, I will do it with faith, and the other one it says with justice and righteousness. And that means that's the difference between going out of Mitzrayim and later when they receive the Torah. And that is that we spoke about this numerous times, but it's always good to talk about it again, is that just like in a marriage, there are two stages. One is called, if you want to know the words, it's on page 21, number 12. One is called Erisin, one is called Nisuin. When we go to a chuppah today, we see both of these things happening at once. Where the chassan puts the ring on the kavah's finger, and they're standing under a chuppah. Then they read the ksuva, and they say Sheva brachas. Years ago, these were two separate procedures. The first procedure was called Erisin, or Kiddushin. And that's when the chassan put the ring on the kavah. And by doing that, they became a couple. They're considered married, but it's not fully married. They're still not allowed to live together as husband and wife. And then they would take 12 months to prepare for their marriage, each one in their way. And 12 months later, they did the second stage, which is to go under the chuppah, and then from the chuppah to go to the yichud room and say the bracha on the wine. And that was the second stage of the marriage. At that point, everything was complete, and they were husband and wife, lived together as husband and wife. Today, we do it together. In fact, one of the reasons why you read the ksuva out loud, a lot of MCs like to make jokes about the ksuva, and you give your wife the credit card and all sorts of different things. But what's the reason why you have to read the ksuva out loud? The ksuva is the commitment the husband is making to the wife. One of the reasons we read it out loud is to make some sort of a break between the two processes. This is Kiddushin, this is Eris. So when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, there was also two stages. Going out of Mitzrayim was stage one. That was like Kiddushin, but wasn't complete. When we received the Torah at Har Sinai, that was like the Erisin. Then our marriage with Hashem became complete. And one of the differences is when we went out of Mitzrayim, we didn't have Torah yet. We didn't have the intellectual connection yet. There was only Amunah. When you went into Har Sinai, that's when Hashem gave us the Torah, which is wisdom and intellect. And then our connection to Hashem became much deeper and more penetrated more. And that's the second stage of the marriage. So yes, matzah gives us Amunah, and the Torah that came later after the matzah, that's when we got that deeper and more intimate and intellectual connection to Hashem, which is through learning Torah. I think we'll stop here and to be continued. Okay. We have one more part here in this booklet, I think. And that's going to be tomorrow about why we don't need chametz. That's another big subject. Okay. Hi, Carolina. Good to have you on.
Hey, Rabbi. Thank you. Great.
Have a great Pesach.
You too. Thank
All the best. Yeah.
But Carolina said she's looking at, she's been reading her notes in my phone, like the full page off.
Really? That's what you should all be doing, preparing your notes. Hashem, going over with your kids. I learned this, so now we can move on. But now that we have robots, we can do it differently.
Yeah. I'm putting my notes with AI and being like, tell me what I need to know.
That's smart.
That's why I type it, but then I can search for my if you can search like. I love the question, she just like, searches like strawberries come up.
I think I
Spoke to the other tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about getting a time. I don't feel like I need to do notify myself, yeah, for like the song kind of stuff.
Tomorrow, who's here now? Just Rabbi Majeski. The best thing would probably be it's at 10 o'clock. Then, because then we have the ballots. I don't know if
Okay.
okay, it's moving, but we can do 201.
Yeah, same thing, yeah. Right, it's true, and now I do one for a while.
Okay,
Thank you.
remind me, right? Remind me,
Yes, I will, thank you.
and I'll tell them.